In a Manhattan court filing, Sean Combs' own business partner made a claim that stopped everyone who read it. On a tequila brand, the two of them owned 50-50. They said Combs had put in $1,000. $1,000, while the partner spent more than $100 million. That is not a rumor from a podcast. That is in the filing. And here is the part that makes it stranger. A few months later, Combs walked away from that same brand with roughly $200 million in cash. He disputes their version, and no judge ever ruled on it. But it opens a much bigger question about a man Forbes once valued at $740 million, and later quietly cut to $400 million. We traced every dollar through the court records, the SEC filings, and the deeds. This is where the money actually went. To understand the cash, we have to start with the brand that built it. And it was not the music. Sean Combs launched Bad Boy Records in 1993, and for a while it looked like the whole story. Biggie, Mace, Faith Evans, hit after hit through the 90s. But records are a brutal business to actually own, and we'll come back to who really owned those. The fortune that put the word billionaire next to his name came from something else entirely. It came from a bottle. In 2007, Combs signed a deal with Diageo, the British drinks company behind Johnnie Walker and Guinness, to be the face and the marketing engine of Ciroc vodka. At the time, Ciroc was a nobody. It was selling somewhere around 40,000 to 50,000 cases a year, a rounding error in the vodka world. Combs took it into the clubs, into the bottle service tables, into the music videos. He built Ciroc into a status symbol, and the numbers moved in a way almost nobody in that industry had ever seen. Within a few years, Ciroc was doing more than 2 million cases a year. He took a brand that was practically dead and turned it into one of the biggest vodkas in America, and Diageo paid him for it. Years later, when the relationship fell apart and both sides were filing documents in court, Diageo stated in its own filing that the partnership had paid Combs nearly $1 billion over the life of the deal. Close to $1 billion from one bottle. That is the number that built everything you picture when you think of the Combs empire. But read that Diageo filing closely, because it also contains the detail that changes the entire story. Combs was paid to promote Ciroc. He was paid a share of the profits on the cases he helped sell. What he was not, according to Diageo, was an owner. He didn't hold equity in the Ciroc brand. He held a marketing and profit arrangement sitting on top of a brand that Diageo owned outright. Deals like that are common for celebrity faces. The star lends their name and their reach, and in return they collect a share of the profits on every case sold. What made this one extraordinary was the scale. Ciroc got so big that Combs' share alone ran into the hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. But a profit share, however rich, works like a very large paycheck. When the deal ends, the paycheck ends with it, and there is no asset left behind that you can turn around and sell. So when people call Ciroc his vodka, the paperwork says something colder. He ran the engine of that brand for more than a decade, but his name was never on the title. That distinction sounds like a technicality. It is the single most important fact in his entire financial life. A cut of the profits, however large, ends the day the deal ends, while an owner keeps the asset and can sell it whenever they want. Combs was earning owner money on a brand he could never put up for sale. So the moment that partnership broke, the entire engine of his fortune disappeared overnight. And hold on to that, because it's about to happen a second time. Now let's deal with the billionaire question, because this is where the public story and the documents split hardest. For years, the word billionaire followed Sean Combs everywhere. It was in the headlines and the introductions, and he said it himself more than once. There was just one problem. It never came from the Forbes Billionaires list. Forbes never put him on it. Here's what actually happened. The billionaire number came from a magazine ranking and a set of analyst estimates that added up the value of his deals, his catalog, his properties, and his brands, and landed above $1 billion on paper. Forbes, the outlet people actually mean when they call a celebrity a billionaire, ran its own numbers, and their highest estimate of his entire fortune was $740 million in 1919. The billion-dollar version of Sean Combs only ever lived in the rankings that added everything up at once. Those rankings work by taking every asset a person touches, valuing each one at its most optimistic figure, and stacking them into a single total. It makes for a clean headline, but it says very little about how much cash someone could actually put their hands on. And then it went the other way. In 2024, after the lawsuit started and the brands started walking, Forbes revisited his fortune in a piece about the wreckage of his empire and cut that estimate to around $400 million, a drop of roughly $340 million from where they'd had him 5 years earlier. And that happened before a single criminal verdict. This is the pattern this channel keeps running into. A celebrity valuation is a story people repeat until a filing forces a different number. With Kylie Jenner, it was a Cody investor document that cut her company's revenue claim by more than half. With Combs, it was his own vodka partner in court, saying the man the world called a self-made billionaire had put $1,000 into the tequila they supposedly built together. Somebody announces a big number, and then a document shows up with a smaller one. So how do you go from nearly $1 billion in Ciroc money to Forbes cutting you to $400 million? You do something almost no one saw coming. You sue the company, writing your checks. In May of 2023, Sean Combs sued Diageo. His argument was that Diageo had treated Ciroc and his tequila, De Leon, as lesser brands because he is black, that they had underinvested and broken their promises. It was a serious claim, and on its face, it was about racial discrimination inside the drinks industry. But when you sue a company that has paid you close to $1 billion, that company opens its files. Once a lawsuit is filed, discovery begins. Both sides have to hand over internal documents, and a lot of those documents end up in the public record, where reporters and everyone else can read them. Diageo's response is where the tequila comes back. In its countersuit, Diageo told the court that on De Leon, the tequila brand the two of them owned 50-50, Combs had contributed almost nothing in cash. Their filing put his contribution at around $1,000, against more than $100 million that Diageo said it had poured in. Combs disputed that characterization, and to be clear, no judge ever ruled on whether it was fair. But it was now in the public record, and it landed like a bomb, because it put a hard number on the other side of the self-made billionaire story. Then it got quieter and stranger. In January of 2024, Combs withdrew the entire lawsuit. He withdrew it with prejudice, which in plain English means he agreed never to bring those claims again. And as the two sides untangled, Diageo ended the Ciroc relationship completely and took full control of De Leon. The Ciroc money was now entirely gone, and the tequila he owned half of was no longer his either. But watch how he left, because this is the part almost nobody tells. Quick thing before we keep going. If any of this is landing for you, tap the like button. It genuinely helps this kind of forensic work reach more people. And if you're watching this on your television right now, you can still do it. Grab your remote, and you'll see a row of buttons right under the video. Move over to the gray thumbs up and press it to like, and just to the right, you'll find the subscribe button. One press and you're in. All right, back to the money. When Diageo took full control of De Leon, it also bought Combs out of his 50%. In its filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, Diageo disclosed that it acquired the remaining stake in De Leon, and the figure tied to that deal came in at around $200 million. So the tequila his partner said he'd barely funded ended with Combs walking away, holding roughly $200 million in cash. That is the through line from the very first sentence of this video. $1,000 in, $200 million out, on a brand a court filing said he almost didn't pay for. And that payout was only the first move. Look at the timeline, because the timing is the entire point. In the roughly 2 years before the walls closed in on him, Combs converted asset after asset into cash. Take Revolt, the media company he founded in 2013 and built into one of the better-known black-owned media brands in the country. In June of 2024, Combs gave up his shares in Revolt. The company said his stake was redeemed and retired, and that its employees became the largest ownership group. No sale price was ever made public, so we are not going to invent one. But the direction is unmistakable. Right as the storm was gathering, his ownership of his own media company came off his books. Then there's Sean John, the fashion label. Back in 2016, Combs sold most of Sean John to a company called Global Brands Group. Forbes estimated that deal at around $70 million, though the actual terms were never confirmed, so treat that figure as an estimate, not a fact. Then Global Brands Group went bankrupt, and in December of 2021, Combs bought the Sean John brand back out of that bankruptcy for about $7.5 million. He sold high years earlier, then bought the name back cheap when the buyer fell apart. Whatever else you make of him, that is not the behavior of a man who's careless with money. And then the property. In October of 2025, around the time of his sentencing, his Gulfstream private jet was reported sold. His enormous Los Angeles mansion in the Holmby Hills area was put on the market at $61.5 million. As of the latest reporting, that one had not yet found a buyer, so the sell-off was not total. Some pieces moved fast, and others are still sitting on the market with the price tags on them. And the one that shows you how deliberate the timing really was, his waterfront estate on Star Island in Miami. He bought it in 2021 for about $35 million. In July of 2026, according to the real estate outlet The Real Deal, that mansion sold for $55 million. That's a gain of around $20 million on a single house, and it closed while he was sitting in a federal prison cell. A profit that size, signed off from behind bars, is not what the fall of an empire usually looks like. So the empire didn't collapse the way the headlines said. Combs took it apart himself and turned the pieces into cash, right up to the edge. So if the vodka was never his, and the tequila is gone, and the media company is off his books, what did Sean Combs actually own? This is the part that surprises people the most, because it cuts straight to the music. Bad Boy Records, the label that started everything, sounds like it should be the foundation of his entire net worth. But the master recordings, the actual songs, tell a different ownership story. Back in 2005, Warner Music Group bought a 50% stake in the Bad Boy catalog. That's in Warner's own filings, and the price at the time was reported at around $30 million, which means the classic Bad Boy masters, the 90s hits people associate with him most, have been half-owned by Warner for 20 years. He built the label. He just never fully owned the songs that came out of it. Now, in 2023, Combs did make a public gesture. He announced he was returning publishing rights to a group of bad boy artists and songwriters, and it was framed as making things right. But publishing and masters are two very different things. Publishing is the songwriting side. Masters are the recordings themselves. The 2023 move was about publishing. It did not hand those artists the master recordings, and it did not touch Warner's long-standing stake in the catalog. And the single most valuable piece of that whole catalog, the music of the notorious B.I.G., isn't controlled through Bad Boy at all anymore. Biggie's estate consolidated his catalog, and in 2025, the estate sold a 50% stake in it to Primary Wave, a music rights company, in a deal reported at over $100 million. So the crown jewel of the Bad Boy sound got monetized, just not by Combs, and not through his label. Then there are the artists themselves, and their numbers are the quiet tragedy under all of this. Mase, one of Bad Boy's biggest stars, has said publicly that he sold his publishing catalog back for around $20,000. The rapper Shine has described signing away rights for figures in the tens of thousands. Donnie Klang, who won a recording deal on national television through making the band, said he was paid a few $100s per episode. The label generated hundreds of millions in value over the years, and a lot of the people who actually made the music saw almost none of it. So let's put the whole ledger on the table, because the question everyone actually asks about Sean Combs is simple. Is he really broke? On the money inside, about $200 million from the De Leon buyout, a $20 million gain on the Star Island house, the Sean John flip, the Revolt redemption, and whatever was left of more than a decade of Ciroc payments and profit checks. This is not a man who ran out of money. But now the other column, and this is why the cash out matters so much. Combs is facing a wall of financial liability that has nothing to do with whether he can sell another mansion. Under oath, it came out that he had already paid a settlement of around $20 million to the singer Cassie. His criminal defense alone has been reported to have cost roughly $8 million so far, with projections running well past that. And he is facing dozens of civil lawsuits, by some counts over 100 separate claims, each one aimed at exactly the kind of cash he spent 2 years generating. On top of that, the criminal case ended in a sentence of 50 months and a $500,000 fine served at a federal facility in New Jersey. That's the real picture. So the money is still there. It just moved out of brands and buildings and into cash, right as a wave of legal claims was forming against him. Whether any of it survives that wave is the question the next few years are going to answer. Which brings us back to where we started. A court filing said a self-made billionaire put $1,000 into the tequila. Forbes never actually put him on the billionaires list, and then cut his fortune nearly in half. The vodka was never his. Half the masters belonged to Warner. And the one thing Sean Combs timed almost perfectly was the way he got out. The empire was a story. The cash was the only part that was ever really his. And that raises an obvious next question. If Combs is the cautionary tale, the man who earned owner money on things he never owned, then who did it the other way? Who built the same kind of fame and actually kept the assets underneath it? That's a man named Sean Carter, and the contrast with this story is almost too clean. We'll trace exactly what Jay-Z owns, and how he did what Combs never could in the next one. One last thing, and this one actually matters for a smaller channel like this. YouTube has a feature called Hype. If you look right under this video, near the like button, you'll see a button that says Hype. When you press it, you give this video a boost on YouTube's weekly leaderboard, which is one of the main ways smaller channels get found by people who have never heard of them. You get a few free hypes every week, and they reset, so it costs you nothing at all. If this was worth your time, press Hype and help push it in front of the next person. That's it. We'll see you in the next one.